We cross to our SABC News foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena. Thank you very much, Ms. Sophie, for joining us. Of course, this state visit comes just a few days or just a week after President Ramaphosa himself was being hosted by Macron along with other African leaders. What can we expect?
Yes, you are correct, Nompu. A week after the Africa-France summit that was held in Paris a week ago, where the two leaders met on the margins of that summit. High on the agenda was the issue of investment and trade, but also how to fight COVID-19, assisting Africa and South Africa in particular to be able to manufacture vaccines, drugs and therapeutics for COVID-19. And therefore we expect this issue to be the highlight of this visit with some announcements. I can tell you that representatives of the World Bank are here. I know that the CEO of AVEC and also the CEO of Aspen is around here, and in the afternoon that's where the issue of COVID-19 and manufacturing of vaccines is going to be dominate the discussions. But before that, there's going to be a meeting here at the Union Building. That will be a meeting that is related to political relations, trade and investment, and perhaps the issue of security on the continent, not only the issue of Cabo Delgado, where we have this problem of the insurgents, but also the issue of security in the Sahel region, as you have realized that the death of the Niger president, including the recent coup in Mali, and the instability in Cameroon, and also the border between Chad and Nigeria, where you have the Boko Haram, speaks to the instability in the West Africa, but also in the Sahel region. And I know that President Macron, a few months ago, he was in the Sahel region, but also recently he attended the funeral of the president of Niger, and he emphasized the intention by France to ensure that Sahel region is stable. But people are questioning interest of these big countries on the continent. It looks like there's a scramble for Africa. You know, we had the China-Africa summit, we have the Russia-Africa summit, a US summit, and also UK. And now it is France and Africa. And therefore people are saying, what is it that is of interest to these developed nations when we know that it is always about them first?
Yes, of course, Ms. Sophie, but what's important as well is how our African leaders also entertain these superpowers, so to speak.
Yes, indeed. You can't do away with relations, trade relations, political relations, security relations. You know that we are one village, we are one globe, we are one world, and therefore no country is an island. What is important is for African leaders to be decisive, to be firm. It was on Tuesday during the Africa Day celebrations where the former President Thabo Mbeki, when he was making comments after the Africa lecture by a renowned a scholar in London who's a Nigerian, where she emphasized her concerns around how Africa is handling all the challenges the continent is experiencing currently, but also lamenting the fact that ordinary citizens on the continent are not saying anything, citing an example of Tigray, example of Cabo Delgado, and also, of course, Sahel. And President Mbeki, in response to the lecture, saying that it is important for leaders to remain vigilant, but also to ensure that they implement the founding principle and also the charter of the African African Organization of African Unity, which later became the AU, the African Union, where the emphasis is putting Africa first, be it political or on trade and investment and security. Him even citing an example of the invasion of Libya, saying that Africans were working hard to ensure that they resolved the issue of Libya. But it was the former President Barack Obama, the former President of the United States of America, Nicolas Sarkozy, the former President of France, and the Prime Minister of UK, then David Cameron, who made it clear that they wanted a regime change. And therefore the former President Mbeki saying Africans must always be vigilant and they must never shy away to put their interests first, but also to fight for their autonomy. And President Ramaphosa, when he was engaging media in France, he also emphasized a need for Africa to have its voice and firm voice, and also saying that whatever agreements that are reached must be what Africa wants.
Indeed. And one last thing, Sophie, we saw some not so great visuals in the Pan-African Parliament in Midrand, where there was, a little bit of a hullabaloo. And, there is that constant debate about whether Africans are united enough to be able to face challenges and issues head on.
I think what is critical, Nompu, is to ensure that at regional level, these countries are united. From the region, then you move to the continent. But it is going to take time. The problem is to undo the damage of the colonial masters, as many countries were colonized, either by the English-speaking countries or the French-speaking countries. Now, this problem continues to pose a challenge for the continent, where even ourselves as Africans, we tend to take sides based on the official language, so to say, that we use. Those countries that are using English as an official language or means of communication internationally, they tend to work together and agree. Perhaps it even speaks to the issue of how the continent was colonized, where you have the former colonizer being the British. You'll see that you have what we call the Commonwealth. And all the time, countries that are members of the Commonwealth work together. When you look at the West and Sahel region and the North, you find a situation where in the Sahel region, in the West, and sometimes in Central Africa, you have a situation where there's a leaning towards the French language, and it is the dominant language, and therefore countries there always support each other. When you go up north, it is the issue of the influence of the Arab League, where the northern countries, like your Egypt, like your Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, sometimes they don't know where they stand, whether they are really African countries or they belong to the Arab League, and also taking decisions, prioritizing perhaps the Arab League contrary to the continent itself. And these are the issues that citizens of this continent must talk about and never shy away to discuss. And I think what happened at the Pan-African Parliament speaks to that, where you have all these countries there and they are supposed to agree on the leadership of the Pan-African Parliament. Now the support is based on regions. As you know that there's a candidate from East Africa, a South Sudan candidate. You have the SADC candidate from Zimbabwe. You also have the West Africa candidate from Mali. And you can already see that this will definitely lead to a serious contestation. And this argument that the southern region, SADC, cannot have a person that they can put forward as the leader of the Pan-African Parliament, it's a misnomer. Because are you saying SADC is not part of the Pan-African Parliament just because the Pan-African Parliament is based in South Africa in the SADC region? These are issues that leaders must grapple with and discuss, because they will continue to divide them, and in turn they will divide the ordinary citizens of this continent, and we won't be able to do away with the issue of xenophobia and all forms of intolerance.
Thank you very much, Sophie, for giving us some context there. That's Sophie Mokoena, our foreign editor. She's at the Union Buildings ahead of that meeting between President Macron and President Ramaphosa.